What's up, guys? It's Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be talking about 3 tips for wide receivers to be an unguardable wide receiver with their routes. So we're going to talk about how you guys can get a faster press release and how you guys can get more separation off the line, how you guys can understand leverage and how to attack leverage, when to run away from leverage, and then we're going to talk about how wide receivers can study film to make sure they know when to use these topics we cover. So I hope this video helps you guys out, but also, fellas, if you're a wide receiver and you want to get some work in with us this offseason, we are coming out to 2 more states for the remainder of this year. Next up on our camp tour, we're coming out to Salt Lake City, Utah this weekend, and then we'll be traveling to Los Angeles, California, both for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver camps. So if you guys want some more information on that, what we'll be covering, we'll have DBs out there, we'll be going one-on-ones, a lot of technical work for 2 whole days, fellas. So check out that very first link in the description below. Let's get started. So first release here is going to be from Rashad Bateman. He's going to be using this release called a wide step. Now, something that a lot of wide receivers do on this release is they have an extremely slow first step. So I'm going to play this full speed and then we'll break it down. So Bateman does a great job of using that kick step, getting the DB to jump, and then winning on this route. So some of the common mistakes wide receivers will do is they'll be in a great stance like this, and they hear me say, oh, you want to step outside the DB's frame, because this DB is watching your hips. If we don't step outside his frame and we don't threaten him vertically, he is not going to move. So what a lot of wide receivers will do is they'll just come out of this stance and take a step with the back foot. They won't use anything to give them explosion. That's why you guys need to add a kick step to your tool belt or a prep step. Either one works, and we'll talk about what that is in a second. So you see how Bateman uses that back foot to kick behind him. Now that kick step right there is a step for balance. It's to give you some balance out of the stance, but also it's a way to kind of load up your hips. Because like we said, where's the DB's eyes supposed to be in press coverage? It's supposed to be looking at your hips, right? So I need to make sure that I throw my hip outside. I need to make sure I'm selling with my hip, almost like how a basketball player would do a crossover. So when he does this kick step behind, that's just a way to kind of springboard your hips, so when you take that step outside, you get more distance, you get more like depth with the step, if you will, but also you bring your upper body with the cut, because that is what will sell it. So many wide receivers will step here, but their body stays over here to the middle of the field. And when you step and that foot's outside of your frame, you're not going to have any explosion and you're not going to have any speed out of the break. We'll have maybe some speed into the break, but if we don't bring my body, I won't have any balance and speed to get out. And you see what that does to the DB. That completely gets him to jump off the platform, because everything about this right now, the step being wide, his upper half turning, looks like he's running to the outside. Looks like he's just doing a quick speed release to the outside, and that's how we have to make it look. So fellas, to get more explosion, to get more speed, to be unguardable off that line, you got to add something like a kick step or a prep step to the start of just about every single release. Now let's talk about what a prep step would be. So a prep step would be if you don't like the kick step, or maybe your coach hates on the kick step. A lot of coaches do say it's a false step. It's not a false step when it's press coverage. I want to get that clear. But if you don't like that, you could use something called a prep step. So that is essentially, you see how Bateman kind of moves his front foot right there? That is essentially what a prep step is. So you can do that without taking that kick step. You take that little prep step with the front foot and it does the same thing. You push off of it to throw your hip, to throw your upper body. It's not a full cut. It's just a little baby cut to give you some explosion. So either that or the kick step are two ways to help you guys sell the release more, to step outside of this DB's frame, but also to give you that speed and that quickness. Because at the next level, fellas, this DB is so dang quick. He is so dang fast. Fastest guy on the field at all times. And trust me, if we don't sell my routes and I don't have some quickness to it, I won't get separation. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by Bateman using that wide step release to get separation on that slant against head up press. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about leverage. Let's talk about what leverage is, how wide receivers can use that to our advantage so we can be unguardable against this off-man type coverage. So what leverage does this DB have right now? He has outside leverage, right? You guys should always be going over stuff like that. Anytime you see a clip shown, anytime you see a clip of mine, you should be asking yourself, okay, he's what leverage? He's inside leverage, head up, outside leverage. When you're watching film, we're going to get into that in a second on how wide receivers should watch film. You guys should be asking yourself these questions. It's a good review. You have to see it over and over again. Now, he's got outside leverage, so that means what? That means that he is trying to take away the outside and he is trying to force this receiver inside, because he probably has what inside? Help. Or he's expecting the outside route. He's expecting him to run a 10-yard out, a corner, like some kind of fade. So he's trying to force him inside to the help. So he's going to be running a 10-yard out. Let's think about how he would do it. I'm going to play it full speed, and then you should be thinking to yourself right now, okay, how would I run that 10-yard out? Let's play this thing full speed. So he does a great job of attacking inside shoulder, using a peek back move to get the DB's hips to flip, and then is able to break it off and get separation. So let's play this thing back one more time. So a lot of people, anytime they hear me talk about leverage, that the leverage is wherever he is shaded. So he's shaded to the outside, he's got outside leverage, right? Here's the hash mark. We know that's the inside of the field. So he's shaded outside. Now, if he was maybe 3 yards this way and he was lined up here, what leverage would he have? He'd have inside leverage. That means he's trying to force you outside because he probably doesn't have help over the middle. His help is the sideline. So when I'm running a route to the leverage, so if I'm running an out route to the outside leverage, if I were to be running a post route to inside leverage, you would want to attack a shoulder of the DB, not necessarily his leverage. A lot of wide receiver coaches will teach wide receivers when they have this look to stem him, to angle your stem to where you attack him and attack his midline or his right shoulder. But guess what this DB is going to do if you do that? If you attack him, his sole purpose in this coverage is to force you where? To force you inside. So if you attack him here, he's just going to keep the leverage because that's what he's taught to do. Because if you attack him and he keeps his leverage and you have to run that out route, you're going to be ending up running right into him. So we have to try to get his hips to flip. And that is where selling vertical comes into play. So this wide receiver does a great job of attacking the inside shoulder. My sole goal is to get him to think fade. Get him to think that I'm running a seam just straight up the middle of the field. So how do I do that? I got to make sure that I'm running hard. Number one, I always have to run hard. You don't have to be faster than the DB. You just have to run as hard as you can. Make it look like you're going deep. You put your head down, you pump those arms, and then the second thing is you want to be running in full stride. A lot of wide receivers right before their break point, what they'll start to do is they'll start to take choppy steps. Now, I made a video the other day talking about that, and people were saying, oh, well, you take choppy steps and that's going to get the DB to stop and you could go run deep. Well, yeah, no shit, but that's not the route that we're talking about. When you guys are running a shorter route that requires you to try to get the DB to bail out of there, you cannot take choppy steps. You have to keep full stride. You have to sell the route to get this DB to open up and run with us. So the stride is 100% important. You have to be able to break while running full stride. A lot easier said than done, but that's what it takes to get that DB to open up his hips. And then last but not least is your pad level or body language. So to sell with body language, he starts peeking back to the inside. And that's a great way to make it seem like it's a quick seam, something that's going to get that DB to open up and expect the fade, expect maybe a bang 8 post, whatever it might be. But that is a great job selling the route, fellas. So again, when we have that outside coverage and we have to run an outside route, that is what we need to do. Attack that inside shoulder, force the hip flip so I, again, can get space underneath, but I also have spacing. If you just try to attack his leverage and he weaves, and let's say you break it off and you're able to slip under him a little bit, you're going to be all the way at the top of the numbers. You can't run this route over there. You have to give the QB space to throw you on open. Now let's talk about what if he had to run an actual post or a dig. That's when you'd want to attack his leverage. You'd want to attack his right shoulder or his midline. Because if you go at him outside, what was he supposed to do? Widen, and then I could break this thing off to the inside. And fellas, it is the same exact concept when he's inside leverage. If he's inside shade and you got to run an out route, you'd attack him. Keep him inside, and then that gives you more space. If he's inside shade and you got to run a post, you attack the inside shoulder, get him to flip his hips, we slip back underneath. Let's play this thing again full speed. So to be unguardable, fellas, you have to understand leverage. You got to think like a DB and know why a DB is playing you a certain way. So now, last thing I wanted to talk about was film study, right? We talked about this in the beginning just a little bit. So if I am a wide receiver, you got to understand that DBs, and listen, I coached for a high school team a little while ago, maybe like 5 years ago, I think. I just do training now. But when we coached on the weekends, we would study a team, and all we would study is tendencies. How often does a team come out in this coverage? So what do we need to put in? What do we need to install into our playbook? Or what plays do we have that will work against that defense? Now, if I'm a wide receiver, my guy who I'm playing, like let's say I'm a wide receiver and I only play on the right side, right? Let's say you're that guy. And I'm going up against his DB, and I know the DB I'm going up against. I see it on film. We have 4 or 5 games of film of a team. I'm going to be studying his tendencies. What does he like to do, and what do I have in my tool belt that coincides with the routes that I'm going to be running to get separation? So Adams is probably, again, I'm not going to pretend I know how much film the guy watches. I'm sure he watches a ton of film because of the way he operates on that field. So let's play this full speed. So this is his like patented release, that little hezzy go. So he comes off, hesitation, just goes. Beats him with speed to the outside, but we got that DB to hesitate to the inside for a split second, and that is what it takes. So let's say you're getting ready for a team. Let's say that when they play man coverage, maybe they like to play man coverage only when they're inside the 20, or let's say maybe they play man coverage only on like second and long, or what, maybe not second and long, it was stupid, but like some kind of coverage, some kind of situation they like to play man coverage in. So we got to be prepared for that situation. When that situation happens in a game, we should be expecting that coverage. So let's say they love to play inside shade. And let's say a lot of the routes that you like to run are fades and slants, right? Those are two of Davante Adams' best routes, obviously. So when he's inside shade, you could use something like this. Because if he's inside shade, and let's say maybe your job, your backside, you're running the guy off, or maybe it's 4 verts, or maybe whatever it is, and you got inside shade coverage, and you give him this little hezzy move, and then you just take off like this, and you can feel your speed, even if you don't get the ball. That can get in this DB's head a little bit. He sees that release, and he's thinking, oh shit, anytime he hesitates, I'm going to open up. He's going to try to just take off and run on me. You're making your releases look the same, so we are unpredictable. So I come back to the line now, and maybe the next time I have to run a slant, and you see Davante Adams do this all the time. He hesitates right here, but that DB will jump outside, and we hit him with a crossover, and then I go run the slant. And I got a ton of separation because I made my releases look the same. Now you're in his head. Now he doesn't know what you're going to do because you made your releases look similar. Fellas, that is the name of the game. That is why we need to watch film, because when you guys can have a structured plan that you keep simple, a DB cannot prepare. And when we force a DB to rely on his technique of watching my hips, trying to stay disciplined, I always got something. That means he's guessing. That means playing a guessing game every single snap. And that is when I can win. Let's play this thing again. Now, one last thing. Everybody asked me this. Well, what if I have to run a fade and I do that hezzy move and he jumps to the outside like so? Okay, I put the brakes on and I just take the inside release. Just like we were talking about attacking leverage. You got to take what the DB gives you. He's outside shade. In this case, if that DB jumps outside, he's outside shade. I can't get the outside release, so I'm just going to take the inside release and work at the top of the route instead of trying to get all that separation off the line. You got to be able to react as a receiver, fellas. React, have a plan, but also have a plan to react. Let's play this thing again, full speed. Great job by Adams giving that hezzy, getting that DB to sit inside, and then winning over the top. All right, fellas, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comments section below. Always appreciate the feedback. Always great to hear from you guys as usual. And again, fellas, if you'd like to get some work in with us this offseason, we are traveling out to 2 more states, Salt Lake City, Utah, and then Los Angeles, California, 2-day-long QB and wide receiver camps. So if you want some more information on that, check out that very first link in the description below. I'll see you guys next time.